Okay, so today we are going to upgrade the memory in our Mac Mini. So this takes a standard SO-DIMM, which means that you can upgrade your Mac Mini relatively cheaply compared to what Apple will charge you to do it. So what you need is a couple of security Torx drivers. So I've got a T6 and a T7 and also a T10. I've got a pair of pliers and some long nose pliers and a flathead screwdriver. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to turn the unit over, and we want to use the flathead screwdriver to pop off the bottom case. So this sits over 3 screws there. I'm going to use that to collect all the bits and pieces that I take off. So the first thing that I'm going to use is a T7 driver, T6. So you can just use a normal Torx driver. This is a security one because one of the screws in the bottom here has got a little dimple in the middle to stop you using standard tools, and for potentially Apple authorized resellers only to do the job. So that's the 3 screws off that hold the cover in place. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to take off the smaller ones. So these aren't raised, these are standard. And then the final one, there we go, that's the security one. You've got to remember where all of these go, which I do. I've got them all pre-marked on a diagram. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to raise the plate up. So you'll notice that this comes with the wireless connection on. So you want to just twist that off to the side, and then I'm going to turn this around so you can see in here. Underneath here you can see where it mounts. So you want to get underneath, be very careful that you don't ruin it, and you want inside here, let's see if we can zoom in a bit. There we go. You will see this Torx screw in there. Now that should, I think that's a T6 again. So we just undo that very carefully. So at this point I'm going to use my tweezers to make sure that I don't drop that. There we go, put that off there. That's that. I'll zoom back out now. See what we're doing. So once that is done, you can either use the pliers just to give that a little wiggle off in there. I'm actually going to use my long nose pliers. There we go. So that's that off there. That just basically is a tiny little clip, and that is the cover removed. So let's turn that back around. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to take a T10 No, we're not. We're going to take a T6 driver, and we're going to undo the 4 fan screws that hold the fan assembly in. You don't want to move this one at the moment until you've finished taking it apart. Again, I'm going to use the tweezers just for added security on here. I'm actually going to use the long nose pliers. Second one is over in the top corner here. Again, being very careful not to drop the screw. And again, I'm going to use my long nose pliers in here just to make sure that that comes out safely. And then the next 2 are holding the fan assembly in place to the exhaust vent. Okay. There we go. Now they've got a little rubber bung on there, so you need to make sure that, again, those go back in the correct ports. That rubber bung lifted out of the other side, but it's not going to lift out of this side, so I'm going to take that, remove the screw, and then I'm actually going to take that rubber bung . I'm going to leave that for now. Right, so now we're going to prise that apart very, very carefully, and we're going to lift that up, and you can see here, let's zoom in on that, the fan connector just here. So you want to take all of the 6 wires, and that will just lift up and pop off. Okay, so that's the fan unit out. The next thing that we want to do is we want to disconnect the connector here. So this is the one of the I/O connectors. So we want to take that out carefully. We want to undo that, and then we're going to remove a couple of extra screws. So we're just going to give that a little wriggle out. Again, if we get all the way underneath all the cables, we should be able to take that out very carefully. Okay, I'm actually going to use the pliers again. There we go. So that's just undone from there. Again, we're going to hold that out of the way. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to undo or prise up this connector here. Okay, so that is the LED connector. You've got to be really careful with this one. Let's zoom out for a minute. Okay, so this lifts straight up. Very, very careful on this one. There we go. So that just lifts straight up. The next thing is we are going to be using a T10 driver, and we're going to undo the logic board from the base. So that is on these two screws here, which are quite well done up, as you can imagine. One there. Again, another tight one there. Okay. And then I've turned this round. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to extract the whole logic board by pushing on the exhaust fan here. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to remove the memory guard cover. So you're going to be using a T5 Torx screwdriver for this. So let's go ahead and remove that. Remember, again, keep all your screws that you take out safe. Now this is an interesting, fairly interesting design. Well, I think it is anyway. So what we've got under here is the memory. Now this cage doesn't just lift up, it slides out. So you want to put your finger on the side here to support it, and then slide that up and out to reveal the memory. Now what you've got here is you've got two rubber guards on the sides that are clipped in as well. So you want to remove those carefully, so that lifts up from the bottom and then it actually slides off. And again, you can see here, lift up from the bottom to unclip that, and then that will just slide off. So this reveals the clips that hold the memory in. And the next thing we want to do is we want to take the memory, our new memory, to insert this. So making sure that you're careful when you're handling it. Okay, it only goes in one way, but this is a 16 gig, so I've got 16 gig in there already, so this is going to upgrade it to 32 gig. So I'm going to carefully position that in there, and then I'm going to take the side clips, push those down till they lock in. And again, let's have a little zoom in here so we can have a look. So the side clips here, here, here and here. So that's your memory inserted. Make sure that that is clipped in correctly, which it is. They're not going to come out. We've got a good connection there, and they are locked in place. So the next thing you want to do is you want to reinsert your side plastic covers. They'll only go in one way, and again we're going to put them on the same way we took them off. So we're going to actually slide that down over the top to make sure it's covered, and then clip in the bottom like that. That didn't go in first time, so just position it in the right place. There we go, that's better. Clip the bottom one in, and same for this side. Just position it over the sides of the RAM. It's got to be in the right position. It's a bit fiddly, but hey, we're saving ourselves a fortune. And then that's not quite in. Nope. Did I tell you it was fiddly? I'm sure I did. Okay, I'm just going to turn the board around so I can see what I'm doing here. So you can see the little grooves on here. They need to line up correctly. So insert that there. There we go. That's better. So now we're down there. That's it. That's on. And then we can carefully slide our memory cage back in. Screws and holes should align nicely. And again, we're going to use our T5, make sure I've got the right one, T5 Torx driver. I'm using magnetic ones, just so it holds the screw. There we go, it's the first one in. Make sure you don't over tighten anything. You should have detected how tight things were done up when you took the screws out. So again, third one. Let's move that over there. And fourth one, there we go. It's so tiny, you want to make sure that you don't lose anything and you've got exactly the correct parts going back in the right correct holes. Okay, so that's the cage put back on. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to reinsert this back into the base unit. Now this is all not too fiddly, but you've got to make sure that you don't damage your LED cable. You want to make sure that the cables are out of the way when you slot your board back in. So again, being very careful, I'm just going to walk this in into the right place, and I'm going to use use the tweezers if I can find them. What on earth did I do with those? Ah, there they are. Okay, good. So just going to hold that cable up while that reinserts into the correct place. I want to push that in so it locks in place nicely, which it has done. And then we want to use our T10 Torx driver. Screw down the board. Now remember, this one was done quite tight, so I'm going to make sure that I've given that the appropriate level of tightness. Okay, so that is the two put back in there. So the next thing is we've got the LED cable and we've got this cable, so I'm going to pop this one back in first. And I'm going to use the tip of the long nose pliers just to get that side down. Get that side down. Not damaging any of the cables, I'm just pushing on the block to make sure that that goes back in place, which it has done. Next thing is we need to make sure that this goes down flat and level. So I am going to use the pliers for this. Just make sure that that positions in the right place. There we go. Good. So that's put back in, so that'd be the LEDs working again. Now the next thing is we need to reassemble the fan and the exhaust. Again, the cable will just push straight down over the top, but what we did have before was one of the rubber bungs had come out, so I'm actually going to take this off the screw, because I want to make sure that that is back in the right place. So to do that, I'm going to hold the rubber bung with my pliers, and then I'm going to use, I think it was a T, that's right, I'm just going to push from the back, hold it with the rubber bung, the hold of the bung with the pliers, and just extract that off there. Like so. Okay, so that's that done. Now I'm going to, you see the rubber bung in there, I'm going to make sure that that is in place on the other side. Be careful not to drop it into the fan, of course, like I just did. And that rubber bung is now back in place. Okay. So again, we are now going to add the fan connector assembly. So we want to position it over the top. Now this is going to be fiddly, I'm afraid, but got to be done. There we go. You hear that little clip into place. So that is on there. The next thing we need to do is to just make sure that that is sitting on there correctly, which it is. Before we attach the two screws, we want to attach the fan assembly screws, which you would have noticed have got a special collar on. Now the reason for that, as we know, is because they need to go through the rubber grommets. So I'm actually going to use the tweezers first of all. Or the long nose pliers, just to get that through there, like that. Then I'm going to take my Torx driver, as I said, it's all about getting it in the right position so that you can do up. Just going to put that in loosely. The second one goes in the other side, and again I'm going to use my long nose pliers just to position it in the right place. There we go. You can see it's hanging out there very delicately, so I'm going to be careful just to get, there we go, in there, bite. Do that up, same level of tightness as before. There we go. Zoom out a little bit more so you can see what's going on. Okay, so that's the two screws in there. The next two, again, we've got on the actual fan assembly unit. So that's the first one in there. And you want to use your finger in the fan so you can get it in the right position. And again, I've not done that up very tightly at the moment because I want to be able to wiggle and position this one over here. I'm going to turn that round. I'm going to use my long nose pliers just to insert that tip into the rubber grommet so that I don't lose the screw inside the case. And again, there we go, do that up. A little bit tighter this time, go around, make sure that they're all tight. Perfect. Okay, so that's now the fan assembly redone. So we've added the memory module, put the cage back on, put the rubber grommets back on. We've reattached the board, we've reattached the fan assembly. So the next thing is to re-add our base plate and module. Now, you can see where this goes down in the bottom right hand corner here, or left hand corner for you guys. So let's just zoom in to show you where that is. So you can see here the block that it mounts on, and then here is the attachment position. There we go. So what you don't want to do is obviously strain the cable, and you want to make sure that you get it the right way round. So for me, I'm going to again twist the unit round over there for now. I'm going to semi-position by twisting the unit, and then I'm going to get this in the right position using my tweezers. This has got a security peg in the centre of it, so it should only go in one way. So once I get that in the right position, there we go. Okay, that is now on. So I want to use this tiny little one here. Which is a T6. Oh, that was close. Right, I'm going to be a bit sensible. Very carefully. There we go. Okay, I'm just one more, make sure that that is definitely attached, which it is. Screw that nice and tight. Okay, and now we slide this over back into our correct position. We then add, I'm going to add the 3 screws that are not part of the base plate attachment. So if you notice that these are the offset screws. That's one in. Two in. Three in. And then these are the raised screws for the plate, for the backing plate will clip onto these raised screws. There we go. Last one to go in. Oh, dropped it. Okay, so that's it, and then the final one is the backing plate. You can see there I've got the 3 and that is a successful Mac Mini 2018 upgrade from 16 gig to 32 gig of memory, saving yourself hundreds and hundreds of pounds by the price against what Apple reseller will charge you. Obviously what you need to do is make sure that you do have the right tools, so I'm just going to put that over to one side. So here we've got a security T6 Torx driver, here we've got a T5 standard Torx driver, here we've got a T10 standard Torx driver. We've got a pair of long nose, a pair of tweezers, a pair of long nose pliers, and the final one that we used was the flathead screwdriver to pop the back off. I also had a magnifying glass that I used on a couple of occasions just to make sure that things were back in place properly. You might want to do the same because the clips, when you take the cables out and reinsert them again, you do want to make sure that those are all in place. So that's it. So that's the memory upgraded. Let's have a look at the settings. So you can see here 32 gig is now installed. Let's have a look at the system report. That's the wrong one. There we go. Two 16 gig modules giving us 32 gig in total. If you found the video useful, it'd be great if you could leave us a comment under it, or just give us some feedback on how you've got on. If you've got any questions before you undertake the upgrade yourselves, then by all means reach out and leave us a comment, and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, if you could all like and subscribe to the channel, that would be absolutely fantastic, especially if you found it useful. At the end of the day, you've hopefully saved yourselves a few £100 by doing it yourself. If you do run into problems, then you can always reach out, and there are a number of forums on the internet that can help get you back on track. As I say, that's all from me. Thanks very much.